Hey everybody, Mike Rains here, your favorite realtor in Huntington Beach, California, in the Orange County market. I just want to give you a little update for us today because there's been a shift in the market. There's no doubt about that. And what's interesting from a real estate perspective that might help you out as a buyer, as a seller, that there's different things that are happening. And even as an agent, with other agents that we're working with, there's been a lot of shifting of what they need to know about the market because both buyers, sellers, and some agents are kind of they're misinformed of what's actually happening. So the dynamic is like buyers, they see that there's a little bit more market. There's data, there's other things that are happening, there's inventory that's more than what they were used to, and so now in some cases they're the only game in town if they're making an offer, and they're lowballing and they're doing all kinds of stuff, and so expectations need to be set with buyers about like what's appropriate, what's not, and how we can get a good deal for them and negotiate a good deal for them. On the other side, the sellers, they think it's still like 2021 and it's a red hot seller's market. And in reality, the dynamic that the market has shifted to is more of a neutral market. In a buyer's market, you have a bunch of sellers that are competing against each other and they end up dropping the price because one buyer and more than one listing that they have choices on can oftentimes equal price reductions and or strength when it comes to negotiating repairs and things like that. In a seller's market, it's the exact opposite. So sellers have multiple buyers to choose from, and so they can be really strict on what they will negotiate. Oftentimes the prices are going up. And in 2021, things are happening where they don't get any repairs made, no termite, and that's things like that. And that's not happening in this market. A bit of a more neutral market. So if I'm a seller today, my advice to you would be, my recommendation is to have the right price for that house, and that house needs to be staged and looking really, really good, because what you want to do in the neutral market is that the only way that you can be able to have the pendulum swing in your favor is to position your property both in how it looks and in price to be able to get more buyers to come to the table writing an offer so that you have leverage. If you don't, you have one buyer, you have no leverage, the buyer has the leverage. And so if you're a buyer, you just also need to know that when you're coming to the table, right, in this environment, depending on how many offers are being received, if it's a great looking property and there's more than one offer on the table, you're not going to have as much leverage. So maybe you're going to be looking for properties that have been sitting on the market for a little long time. You love the area, you love that except for price. So you're going to make a reasonable offer, and you're probably going to be able to get some repairs made, get the termite stuff made. And if you're selling a property and also buying that property, then you're called a beller, and that bellers have an opportunity in this market to be able to buy something because there's a little bit more choice. And so if you're selling your property, you're in escrow, more sellers are willing to take a look at your offer because of what's happening in the market. Now, the last thing that I would say is that other agents, many agents in this market have never gone through what we're going through right now, where things are taking a little bit longer to sell. They've had to talk to their sellers about price reductions. They've had to talk to their buyers about what's happening in the dynamic in the market. So some agents strictly just don't have the experience in this market to do that. And oftentimes they're not good communicators, so they don't stay in touch with their buyers really well. For example, I just recently had a listing where they wrote an offer, and I noticed that it was made out to, a buyer that was in the name of an LLC, and yet they had it marked as an owner-occupied property. So when I asked the agent about that, they didn't know. So my guess is that they really didn't know this buyer. Maybe they got the lead off of a sign call or something like that, or they got it from a Zillow or Redfin or something like that. And so they didn't really know the buyer. They didn't really ask them, hey, what are you looking for? Why are you looking for it? Why do you want to write an offer on this house? What is it about this house? And do this whole needs analysis. So this agent didn't even know their buyer. So it was no unexpected for us not to be able to put a deal together, because the buyer was trying to buy the property as a flipper, not as a regular buyer, and the agent just simply didn't know that. So you need a real pro to be working with in this market, both as a buyer or as a seller. You need to get those data, and your agent needs to know that and navigate you through as a professional and be able to have good communication skills, good negotiating skills, set the proper expectations with you as a buyer or as a seller, and then get to work. Right? It's all about work in this market, and you need to have an agent that is familiar with these kinds of things. So I hope that helps you out. If you need anything, like and subscribe this wherever you're seeing this message, and give me some feedback. If you have any comments on the market or what you're seeing, I'd love to hear it from you. And so I hope you have a great rest of the week. Thanks.